Starting to feel like we do this every week now. Another bad loss for Northwestern as they fall 17-14 to Miami of Ohio. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Northwestern, your daily podcast on the Northwestern Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. This is Locked On Northwestern, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Carter Bird, and thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen any and every day for anything and everything Northwestern. We are available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. We're also on YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern. You can find us, subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a comment, leave a review, and then just, we'd love to get your feedback, and we'd love to hear more about your thoughts on the show. And let's get into it. Let's talk about this game because 17-14 loss for Northwestern at home at the hands of Miami of Ohio out of the MAC. I believe it's Miami of Ohio's first win against a Power 5 team in the 2000s in this decade or in this century. It's brutal. It's really tough. 3 straight losses, all of them at home after a massive win in Dublin against Nebraska. It feels like everything that could be different is different. It just feels totally different than it did a month ago. My immediate takeaways in this game were it didn't feel like Northwestern really ran the ball that well. We'll talk about that here in a second. But it felt like every time there was a big moment, Northwestern was sloppy, whether it be penalties, turnovers, the blocked punt right before half. All of that kind of culminated into a performance where Northwestern, again, and I've said this for the last 2 weeks as well, it felt like Northwestern was the best team on the field, but that doesn't matter. Football doesn't care about that. It's about who has the most points at the end. I mean, just go around the country. You can see examples of that all over the country. I mean, Auburn wasn't the best team against Missouri, and Missouri found a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. On offense, I thought Helinski was okay. I thought he was pretty solid. He only had a few throws where I was like, that's a really, really, really bad throw. There's one late in the game that should have absolutely been a pick, and it was just dropped out of bounds by the DB. 10 of 11 to start. Ended his day 24 of 42 for 232 yards. No touchdowns, no picks. But he did have a rushing touchdown on the 1-yard QB sneak. 57% completion percentage. Not great. 5.5 yards per attempt, 9.67 yards per completion. He started this game and they I liked what they did to help him feel comfortable after that performance last week. He started 17 of 23. He had 9 straight completions in there, and then as soon as that ended, he had 6 straight incompletions and kind of fell off a little bit. But we've seen that when he plays well, he starts well, and then he kind of loses momentum slowly over the course of the game. But it was definitely encouraging to see him kind of ease him into a very solid start. I don't think he was the reason why you lost the game by any means. I thought he played plenty good enough to win, plenty well enough to win. Weirdly, this offense just really couldn't run the ball. I think it was just 3.5 yards per rush. The offensive line played out fine. When you go look on Pro Football Focus, they graded out well. I mean, they graded out as 4 of the top 6 players on the offense. I think it was Ethan Wiedeker that was a little farther down the list. But 107 yards rushing on 31 carries, 2 touchdowns, one of those being Helinski's QB sneak, the other being Cam Porter. from just outside the end zone. He looked pretty good. Just one explosive run all day. Um, and that stuck out to me. And explosive runs are just 10 yards or more. You had a 27-yard run out of Cam Porter, and it was a really strong run. It looked explosive. He looked powerful in that moment. I was encouraged by that. I mean, he looked good all day. 7 rushes, 42 yards, and a touchdown for a 6-yard average. At that point, I just wonder why he's not getting the ball more when he's having the success he's having. Evan Hull struggled. 21 carries, 62 yards, 0 touchdowns, just about a 3-yard average. Really wasn't his day on the ground, but he's your workhorse, so he continued to go out there, and he was gonna give it all. I thought Northwestern's offense lost its pace that we've seen through 3 games. Through 3 games, they're number 1 in the country in plays per game. They're running about 89 offensive plays. Today they ran on Saturday they ran 75. 14 off that average, 4.9 yards per play, 364 total yards, 7 for 17 on third down. The offensive line did not allow a sack and allowed only 3 hurries, so they protected Helinski, and that's key. They were 7 for 13 passing on third down, but I think only 3 of those actually went for a first down. Now, in the passing game, I can't help but wonder, where's Evan Hull in the passing game? I mean, your best weapon to this point in the year in the passing game, out of the backfield. Just find a way to get him the ball in space. Had just 2 catches for 10 yards on 4 targets. He got, 14 balls 2 weeks ago? Where was he? Cam Porter all day looked like the most explosive athlete on the field. And you didn't throw him the ball. I think you need to find a way to get those running backs involved. I was confused by that. They were 2 for 6 on scoring drives, or 2 for 6 scoring on drives that finished in Missouri territory, which is just not going to get it done. 2 touchdowns, 1 punt, 2 fumbles, 1 turnover on downs. You have to be better than that. You can't have a punt, 2 fumbles, and a turnover on downs in the opposing territory and expect to win a lot of games. Malik Washington, 2 fumbles, and it's brutal. Very brutal. Looked good otherwise, but I mean, you got to feel gutted for him. And Helinski talked about in his post-game presser. I mean, he said that he was his guy, but yeah, it was frustrating to watch. Nevertheless, tight ends were active in the passing game. I liked that a lot. I thought Marshall Lang, Thomas Gordon, I thought they were good. I think they need to continue to be a part of it. They find a way to get open, and they have this shot in the arm kind of mentality, or the energy they bring after they make a play. Marshall Lang caught a ball and slammed his head into Thomas Gordon, and they were celebrating for a big first down. Donnie Navarro looked okay. Bryce Kurtz is getting slowly more active. He had a very nice one-handed catch in that game. On the whole, though, just too many drops for this Northwestern offense, and it was frustrating to watch them just consistently not secure the football. There were 4 or 5 balls that should have been completions for Ryan Helinski that just weren't brought in. And that includes the Jacob Gill catch that was punched out. Initially was a fumble. On review, they said it was incomplete. He never controlled it. Those are the type of plays where the quarterback gets the ball into your playmaker's hands. You have to secure the football. You have to continue to make plays, and you have to make sure that you're not dropping the ball. I mean, that's the quickest way to find yourself on the bench, to find the offense on the sidelines, drop passes. And I think this, especially in a game where the run game is not up to its normal standard, I think you have to catch the football, and you just didn't really do a great job of that on Saturday. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the offense. In just a second, we are going to look at the defense. But first, let me tell you about my friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, let's talk about the defense, because past defense I thought you played well. I thought that group stepped up. You got a couple guys back, Coco Ozma, Cam Mitchell, leaders on the back end. And I thought they made their presence felt. I did. Ozma, we'll talk about him in a second. Felt like he was all over the field. Almost got thrown out for targeting and getting waved off. Mitchell, again, when he's on, he's your best guy back there. But yeah, you did not play a very good quarterback, and you limited him, and you played well against him. Run defense was solid besides one run. The 66-yard run late for Mosey, that was tough. And the rest of the game, it was 43 rushes for 150 yards for 3.6 yards per carry on all the other carries in the game. So they finished with 4.9 yards per rush, and that got inflated by a 66-yarder there late. The defense still lacks lateral speed, and it was apparent on that long run. And Miami just tried to find a way to attack the edge, because they knew they couldn't come straight at this Northwestern defense. And I think that's what teams are starting to figure out, that if they come right straight ahead, if they go old school Big Ten football right at the Northwestern defense, Northwestern's defense could stop that, because they are big enough, physical enough to do that. But when you get them running sideline to sideline, I think they struggle at times. They got put in a few bad spots with turnovers and the block punt before half, and we'll talk about that in a second. But again, they did not force a turnover. And when the offense is fumbling the ball and you got a block punt right in your face before halftime, you have to figure out a way to force a turnover. I mean, I've heard some coaches say that you want to be +1 in the turnover battle. Well, Northwestern hasn't been that way in a little bit here. They allowed 7 rushes of 10 or more yards. In contrast, Miami allowed 1, and it was a 27-yard run by Cam Porter. So you would like to limit those. If you flip the run games in this game, Northwestern wins this game going away. It's not close. Only allowed 5 of 15 first downs on third downs. So solid defense there. You'll take a 33% clip there. Dominant first quarter. And we've kind of seen that all year, is that at times Northwestern will have dominant quarters where they only allow like a handful of yards. And in the first quarter on Saturday, just 4 yards. Just 4 yards, and you love to see that. Just flying around, making it difficult on a team. The third quarter was strong too, coming out of half. I mean, to me, the fact that the strongest 2 quarters were the first and third quarters, where you allow 4 yards in the first quarter and 35 yards in the second quarter, that is a credit to your coaching, because you are well prepared coming into the game against whatever their opening script is. And then coming out of half, your adjustments are really strong, and you hold them to just 35 yards in that third quarter. Held Miami to just 278 yards total, 4.9 yards per rush, 8.86 yards per completion, and 3.26 yards per attempt. 62 passing yards allowed, held Avion Smith to 7 of 19 for 62 yards and a touchdown. He did hit a little slant there inside the 10-yard line for a touchdown. But, I mean, you really can't ask for much more of out of that performance from your defense. I thought they played plenty well enough to win. Just they got put in a couple bad spots, and then you saw the big run late, and I thought other than that, they played pretty well. Bryce Gallagher, 13 tackles, 9 solos, 1 quarterback hurry. Coco Azuma, 10 tackles, 9 solos. His presence was felt again. It's big to have him back there. This Northwestern defense picked up 3 sacks, 1 by O'Rourke, 1 by Cam Mitchell, and 1 by Adebare. 6 tackles for loss, 2 by Adebare, 1 by Mitchell, 1 by O'Rourke, 1 by Johnson, I think it was Ryan Johnson, and then 1 by Hurd. Cam Mitchell forced a fumble. They did not get on it, unfortunately. 5 pass breakups. Cam Mitchell had 1, Adebare had 1. Both Johnsons had 1, and then Hurd had 1 as well. And then your lone quarterback hurry was Bryce Gallagher's. One of the 2 TDs you gave up was off of that blocked punt. And, I mean, they started the drive at the 8. It's a tough ask for your defense. So I don't blame the defense there. In my mind, defense gave up 10 points in this game. But yeah, that's kind of how I view it on defense. I thought the defense played one of its better games of the season, probably its best game of the season. Just didn't get enough out of the offense. Not enough help, turnovers, special teams put them in a bad spot once. Kind of unfortunate circumstances put this Northwestern defense in a spot to lose where I thought they played plenty well enough to win. All right, we know Big Ten play is about to start up, but you need to know what your team is up against across the Big Ten with Locked On Big Ten. Every day, host Nate Dickinson and the local experts of Locked On take you across the Big Ten in 30 minutes. Make Locked On Big Ten your second listen. Locked On Big Ten. All right, so we're going to talk very briefly here about special teams because it turned out to be a very key thing in this game. Key on both sides. Obviously, the blocked punt back to the 8-yard line right before half. Protection breakdown, set up a 2-play, 8-yard drive for a touchdown. And you go into half, I believe it was tied at 7. That can't happen. That can't happen. That can't happen to a team that you're better than. You can't give them the chance to have a super, super short field, get up on or pull even with you going into half. That was really frustrating. Luke Akers was fine. Otherwise, 6 punts, 237 yards for a 39.5-yard average. 3 of those 6 were down inside the 20. Northwestern didn't have anything going in the return game, like not at all. Not a single kickoff return. Donnie Navarro with 1 punt return for his 0 yards, so nothing there. Didn't try any field goals. Made their 2 extra points. And then when you look at Miami on special teams, their punter was awesome. 7 punts for 323 yards for a 46.1 yard average, a 59-yard long, 4 inside the 22 over 50. So you kind of got beat in the punt game there because 1, you had 1 blocked. 2, they're getting dang near 7 more yards per punt. They have more downed inside the 20. They have 2 over 50. You don't really have that on your side. And then, especially when you add in the fact that they had a 20-yard punt return that I believe there was there a fumble on that and they picked it up for another few yards. I think that may have been the case. And then a 6-yard punt return. So they had 33 punt return yards to your 0. So that's just more things that helped you on the the things that went against you in the field position battle. And then they didn't kick field goals well. They had one blocked by you in the third quarter. They missed one in the second quarter, and they finally made that one in the fourth quarter. Honestly, good for that kid to finally hit one, but it was a long day, to say the least, for Nicholson, their kicker, but he kind of got the last laugh there. Brutal thing that happens. Just don't feel like Northwestern converted their opportunities when they were presented. Not a ton of guys got open for big explosive plays in the passing game. Didn't make anyone miss, especially in the run game, really. Didn't rip off any big plays. Your quarterback played good enough to win. Your offensive line probably played good enough to win. Your defense absolutely played good enough to win. Well enough to win. You were the better team on the field. You just didn't convert your opportunities. And that's how you end up with a 17-14 loss and your third straight home loss. So that's kind of how I saw that one play out. It's tough. Northwestern has to get off the mat. Big Ten play. First true road test this week at Penn State. They struggled a little bit coming off their massive win at Auburn last week. But yeah, we'll talk more about this game, what it means for the season, and then that Penn State game as this week goes on. But I think that's going to do it for today's show. I'm Carter Bird. I'm the host here at Locked On Northwestern. You can follow me on social media, on Instagram and Twitter at CarterBird13. Keep coming back for all of our daily shows. We are available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. We're also on YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications. And yeah, I'll see you next time.